It's DD on the spot.
Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to my guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We greatly appreciate it. Also, I'd like to give a promotion here. Alicia Heilner, if everyone remembers her, she was on the podcast a few podcasts back. She has just released a guide on her Instagram, and everyone should go check it out. It's a guide geared towards beginner, intermediate lifters and those new to nutrition and macros. A lot of stuff that's in this guide is a 5-day split of mixed hypertrophy, strength-based training, a bodybuilding style training, additional quick and cable-only workouts, tips on how to progress in the gym to maximize results, introduction to macro training in MyFitnessPal, learning how to adjust macros and train to reach your goals, tips on eating out, drinking alcohol, and staying on track for all of you weekend warriors out there, how to overcome plateaus, grocery lists, and an appendix how to perform each exercise. Go and check out her Instagram page. We'll leave a description down below so that everyone can go and find that. But now we get to our guest here. She is Faith and Fit, Lacey Dunn. Obviously, if you aren't following her, you aren't doing it right. She has got her degree in dietetics, and she's about to become a future registered dietitian. Lacey, thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Of course. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what got you started into the fitness lifestyle and how that came to be?
Yeah, so essentially I started weight training and I started fueling my body to gain muscle back when I was in my senior year of high school. I wanted to make the University of Central Florida Division I cheerleading team, and I was a tiny girl cheerleader, but just did not have the muscle mass that I needed in order to make the team, because they had a certain look they had to do. You had to look a certain way, as well as you had to be able to weight train and do what they did. So in order to make the team, I needed to weight train. I taught myself using bodybuilding.com, as well as all the research that I was personally doing via Google. That, and then learning more about nutrition and its impact on both fitness as well as overall health. That's what really got me dedicated and into the field of dietetics and into the field of nutrition. So the game changer was essentially when I realized, after almost a full semester of doing biomedical science, that was not my plan. I didn't want to be stuck in a lab working with rats or, anything like that. Help people learn about nutrition and impact their lives through nutrition. So that was the game changer for me. And I went from UCF after doing a full year cheerleading there, and I transferred over to the University of Georgia, which I then was a major in dietetics, and that's where I graduated.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's how it started.
Yeah, that's great. So what would you say is probably the most surprising fact that you've learned through all of your studies of nutrition?
Everything's connected, and it's really hard to figure out what's specifically going on. Nutrition, people think that nutrition is so easy, but there are so many factors that we have zero control over, from our environment to our genetics to our epigenetics. Everything is just so complex.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of people don't really understand that genetics does play a huge role in your nutrition. Could you kind of elaborate more on how genetics, obviously it differs from person to person, but just how big of a role that plays in someone's overall nutrition?
Yeah, so when we are each born, we have our DNA, and we don't have control of that. When we go out and we eat certain foods, we also have the interaction of those genes in that specific food with the interaction in our gut microbiome, and this can turn on or turn off genes that we have, and we have zero control over that. Essentially, for every single person, there can be a different response that can potentially turn off or turn on genes. The biggest thing there is specifically that for carcinogens, the carcinogens that we interact with in our environment, the ones that we eat, those can even potentially turn off and turn on genes that lead to tumor growth. So there's a lot of things that we have control over, things we don't have control over in regards to gaining muscle, losing body fat, or metabolism, that plays a huge role into all these different these connecting factors. For example, the Prader-Willi syndrome is where there's like a defect in ghrelin and leptin. So essentially, these people, their body never recognizes that they have food. So they're always constantly hungry. And then their body never realizes that it has body fat. So then it all these symptoms of hunger and changing up hormone levels, decreasing their thyroid levels. So just all these different things just based on one genetic defect.
Wow. That's amazing. And then through your studies, have you found it hard? I mean, obviously, all of these things are so scientific and there's all these words that no one other than people who have studied have heard of. Have you found it hard to kind of relate that information to clients and prospective people that you're working with, just due to the fact that it's a vast array of knowledge that can be hard to kind of dumb down a little bit for people to understand?
Yes, that's something I'm continuously working on, very much so. It's really hard to kind of bring the information from a complex level to something that you could share with the general information, because the general population, because essentially when you're like going out to high schools, when you're going out to the general public, you can't just speak on a college level. It's really hard. And it's like people like accountant trying to tell me about taxes.
We have had accountants on here, and I definitely understand that struggle. So, what do you wish you had known ahead of time before you started sort of your fitness journey? What would be one thing that now you look back and say, oh, I really wish I had understood that?
Well, I wish I would have known that dietitians don't make as much money as they do. No. And I also wish I would have known that in a clinical setting, that it's less patient interaction than I previously thought. Mm-hmm. So I guess I just wish I would have known what dietitians essentially do more of prior to getting into this kind of field. Not taking away from the field that I'm going into, but just something that I would have liked to have known beforehand. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I follow you on Twitter and I follow you on Instagram, and I saw some of your posts bring up a really good point when you're talking about how there are people on Instagram who are sort of trying to pretend to be dietitians, or they're trying to act like they have the knowledge, and they're giving people not like false knowledge, but they're not as informed as they should be, and they're kind of selling themselves off. Is that a struggle you feel in the dietetic field? Is people who just think just because they look good that then they can give that sort of advice without being qualified to do so?
Oh, hands down. You can speak to any registered dietitian. It really pisses them off to hear people call themselves nutritionists or nutrition therapy practitioners, or and the thing is, like, some people are super smart and they are self-educated, and that's awesome. Good for you. But then there's also the really bad people that just claim themselves as nutritionists because of because of a certification they took online by themselves, and they think they have all this knowledge, and it's really hard because using that knowledge and not really actually knowing what you're doing can cause harm on somebody else. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, and I just think with all the other things that have to do with the fitness thing, you have to be, and it differs from person to person. So if you don't have that experience and general knowledge on how other people's body types work, if you just give out like a general, like, this is what you have to do in order to be healthier or nutrition wise, you're not going to have as good of a result. But when you're starting out with clients or starting out with people, what would you say is the biggest health misconception that the majority of the public believes?
The majority of the public thinks that carbs make you fat. And it's really, really sad. A lot of people, and especially these days, everybody's scared of insulin. Everybody's scared of carbs. And it's just really sad. People don't realize that insulin is it's very important for our overall health. If you want to survive, if you want to not be a type 1 diabetic, type 2 diabetic, and stuff like that, you need insulin.
Absolutely. It's just a lot of people just aren't informed nowadays as they should be. And obviously one of the big misconceptions too, especially with women with the whole weight training, is they don't want to get bulky, they don't want to get huge, and they think just picking up one weight. And I have talked to people, it has gotten better over, I'd say, like the last 5 years, especially with Instagram kind of giving more ways for people to view that is just a myth. But is that still something that you run into as well?
I definitely still run into it. And I'm like, come on, people, weight training is so good for you. There's just so many benefits for your metabolism, for your overall health, for your bone health, to doing weight training. And the only reason you're ever going to get bulky, there's two reasons. Number one, you're taking steroids. And then number two, you're just eating like crap and you're actually getting fat. It's the truth.
Yeah. We had someone else on who kind of said the same thing, and it does have to agree also, just people being uninformed. People just aren't really looking into the knowledge ahead of time, and they're just I think it's the problem is too is they're putting blind trust into their trainers without having proper knowledge about it. I mean, you got to have a little bit of a basic intro into what you need to know. Also, one of the things that I've noticed is that your faith and fit. How do you say that your values kind of show up in your work?
Every single thing that I do, I'm able to do because of my amazing God. So every single opportunity, every single passion that has been given to me, that has been put into my heart, has been put in there for a reason. So I want to live in a way that I follow that passion. I follow what he has done for me because he died for my sins, and I want to make sure that I live for him. So knowing that I'm following the path makes me know that I'm doing that, and I strive to do that every single day.
That's amazing. I mean, there's so many, with all the stuff that's going on with social media, there's really not that many people that really focus on their faith when they're promoting an Instagram page, and I really just, I praise you for that, because that's not enough, and I think more people need to be doing that. But at what point when you were starting your Instagram page did you kind of realize, oh my God, this is something that's kind of huge, this is kind of taking off? Was there a certain moment or point when you kind of realized that?
So that was essentially when I made, I was kind of in the running for the 2015 bodybuilding.com spokesmodel search. And I had a following, but nothing crazy, nothing over like 60K. And I made the top 20, and then it just started building, and it started building. And then when I actually got into the top 5, I was like, oh my God, this could be something career in fitness. I had never thought about my Instagram page actually being able to make me money and serving as a side job. And through that, and through my Instagram page growing, I was able to see that I could potentially make this a side gig, which is fabulous because that is how I have paid my tuition.
That's amazing. And it's just one of those things with the new technology. Like I say, if it wasn't for the new technology, I wouldn't be able to be doing this podcast. You wouldn't be able to do Instagram. For everyone that rips on the technology nowadays, there are so many benefits that you can have to it. But when you're doing your bodybuilding prep, have you found that your preps have changed over time, or do you generally have the same experience when it comes to your prep?
So I haven't done a prep in a really long time. I did a 1 week prep last year, so I do not count that one. But generally, I respond pretty well the same. I don't have to do really any cardio. I did cardio 2 times a week for 15 minutes on the Stairmaster for my prep for nationals in Miami in 2016, and just like this prep, I've had to do 10 minutes for 2 times a week on the Stairmaster, and I would say I'm doing pretty good and chugging along. So it's been about the same so far. We still have 7 weeks, so we shall see.
How do you find that strength kind of mentally? Because I know that there obviously, no matter what you eat, no matter how much sleep you get, there will still be days when you might feel like a zombie and when you just feel depleted. Where do you think you get that extra ounce of strength in order to keep continuing on in your prep? Does it come from just knowing what the final package is going to look like, or does it just come from just loving what you do?
I'm very thankful that I've never felt depleted with prep, but I have felt back when I was in burnouts. A few months ago, I was going through a burnout session because my thyroid was just tanked, and I felt depleted, and it was really tough, and workouts were really tough, and getting through the day was really tough. And the only thing that kept me going was being grateful for my health and being grateful that I could even go to the gym. So I would just go telling myself that if I just went, if I took care of my body, and if I fueled my body, then everything would turn out the way it needed to be. Going through, clinicals and seeing patients who are bedridden, that's really been the biggest motivator for me when times get tough. It changes your perspective on life. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to give you all the motivation, just realizes how lucky you are to be able to be a functioning human being and just being able to do what you love. So you are one of the starters, I think. Well, obviously in my Instagram history, you are one of the first ones that I followed in the fitness community, and to me, you're one of the pioneers sort of in the fitness community, especially going back years. But how would you?
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. So how would you say that the fitness community has evolved since you got into it? I mean, it's gone on more, obviously it's got more mainstream with Instagram. They have all the Fitspos now where you can go and meet your athletes, but is there any other ways that you think that it's evolved as well?
Hands down. Back in 2013, when I first started my account, people actually connected and there were friends, and it was less product promotion. It was less, here's my booty, buy my program. It was a lot of, like, people would comment and genuinely encourage each other. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of sharing of information between. You saw a lot of comments like that. And nowadays it's just like, here's my butt, buy my program. Buy this supplement, and there's been an explosion of supplements. So it's been really sad to see the change, particularly coming from, the 2013, 2014 era to now. But at the same time, there's blessings in that because there are more products, there's more information, there's more access to information. So it's a hit or miss there, but definitely there's been a change.
Absolutely. I mean, you see that it's just like with everything else, like even with YouTube when it started coming out, and then now they have all these ads that you have on your videos, and it's just people try to just make money out of it when it comes down to the bottom.
And I get it. I get it. People got to make a living, and the world changes, but it makes it sad.
Yeah. One of your posts that I really enjoyed, and it's one of the things that I knew when I started lifting in college, and it was one of the things that I really paid attention to, is metabolic windows. Could you define sort of what a metabolic window is, and does it differ between person to person, or is it generally the same?
Yeah, so the anabolic window is typically defined as how synthesis is elevated after you work out or have a muscle damaging workout. It can last up to 72 hours in untrained individuals and around 8 to 72 hours in trained individuals. So amino acid levels in your tissues, they typically decline 3 to 4 hours after a protein-rich meal, meaning eating a pre-workout and post-workout meal within 3 hours is redundant for, where you eat in the time. So what people think with the anabolic window is post-workout that you have to immediately have, a source of carbs and protein in order to refill your glycogen stores and gain your muscle. But the thing is, because muscle protein synthesis is elevated post-workout for such a long period of time, you have a few hours to wait to eat, because say that you ate 1 to 2 hours before you worked out. Guess what? Those amino acid levels and muscle protein synthesis is still elevated post-workout. So you can wait a few hours and you can get a meal. You don't have to have something right away. So a lot of people think, it's, I have to get it in right then, right there, but that's not the way the body works. It also, of course, the anabolic window, it does depend on what your training is and your goals. But overall, there's no such thing as an anabolic window.
Oh wow, that's something that I didn't know of. We actually learned something today, everyone out there. You learn something new every day. I always believed that like one of the early programs was 30 minutes after a workout you have to have something. So I always bought into that. But now that I guess I don't have to do that, I mean, now I guess I can actually relax for a little bit before I get something to eat. So I thank you for that.
Well, You're welcome. Well, the thing is, in regards to muscle protein synthesis, it's all about the amino acid levels and the muscle damage. So after your workout, it is important to have a protein source. Mm-hmm. But if you ate a protein source 1 to 2 hours before you worked out, you don't need to worry about it. If it was maybe 4 hours before you worked out, then you would want to make sure you got that protein source in, because those amino acid levels would be lower and muscle protein synthesis would not be elevated, like if it was 1 to 2 hours before you worked out. And then, because people always talk about carbohydrates post-workout. Carbohydrates post-workout are not important if you did a weight training session, because weight training doesn't deplete your muscle glycogen stores. If you did an intense endurance aerobic activity, that's when you would really want to make sure that you refilled those glycogen stores.
Just listening to you just talk about nutrition, I mean, it's just fascinating. Knowing all this stuff that does it make working out seem easier for you, knowing that like exactly when you're lifting your arm doing like a bicep curl, or when you're doing just like crunches or something, that you're knowing sort of what exactly is happening in your body? Does that make working out seem a little bit easier for you, do you think?
Nope, not whatsoever. I wish it was like brain power, but no. It just, the more you know about nutrition, the more you feel like you don't know about nutrition, because there's just so much.
Mm-hmm. One of the big things too is the food that we eat. I mean, obviously that's the big part of nutrition, but what do you think that some things that processed food companies can do in order to make their products healthier and help people overall benefit from it?
So what food companies need to do is they need to start looking at omega-6 to omega-3 ratios, because a lot of foods are made with omega-6s and a lot of processed vegetable oils, because this is very cheap for them to use. A lot of companies are also using refined added sugars. They'll say no high fructose corn syrup, but then they still use an added sugar. They still use sugar, or they use agave. They still use honey. So all these things are still sugars. A lot of companies are after the mouthfeel and the texture and the brain response to high fat, high calorie, high sugar, or high salty foods, because this is what our bodies like, and the chemical response in our brain keeps desiring. Mm-hmm. The companies know this and they go after that. That way they keep you coming back for more. So it would be great to see companies stop doing that. I know they never will, because, I mean, everybody wants to make money. But I just wish more companies would take into account the health of the U.S. population, because right now it's going downhill, guys.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Just you see it every day that it's slowly getting worse. But I hope well, hopefully with people like you, it will make a rebound, because I know that you are doing a very positive thing with all of your subscribers.
I'm trying to get in public policy. I'm trying.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I also like to ask, we have a lot of up and coming bands on here, and I'm starting to branch out more into the nutritional fitness community as well. But one of the things I like to ask the bands is performing live, kind of what that feeling is like for them, kind of the high, the rush that they get off. And I think that same thing applies to bodybuilding shows. What is that feeling like for you when you're on stage and you're able to show off all of that hard work that you've worked for months and months for? You've dieted down, you've basically been through hell that most people don't realize, the average person. What's that feeling like for you specifically when you're walking on stage?
It's a mixture between don't fall, don't trip, and feeling like a glitz glamour goddess. Mm-hmm. So if you are in your element and you're having fun, it's just a euphoria. It's you forget every single moment that you put in. You forget when you were hungry, when you were tired, and all you know is you feel so good and so proud of yourself, and this is your time to freaking shine and show it off. And that is all I remember when I step on stage. And then when I get off, all I remember is the fact that I did not trip, and that's what matters.
Now, you don't have to name names, but have you seen anyone trip on stage?
I have not seen anybody trip.
Oh,
no.
Okay. Yeah.
I have personally tripped.
Oh, you have?
Count? I have, yes. I tell people to practice their posing, because I have tripped.
Yeah. Was it bad, or were you able to do a nice recovery?
Oh, I was definitely able to recover. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It didn't detour away, but I definitely tripped.
Yeah. One of the things that people don't tend to talk about, and I've tried to bring it up on all the nutritionists / fitness people that I've had on this podcast, is after the show, sometimes people struggle with the bloating or the weight gain that you have after the show, because your body's not going to look as lean as it is as you get for the show. Most people don't realize that you've done a lot of things. You kind of manipulated your body into looking as good as it does. But how mentally, how do you prepare yourself, and emotionally, how do you prepare yourself for knowing that, for the fact that I'm not going to look this lean forever, and that, it's just a process where I'm going to have to maybe go through another prep in order to look like this?
So for me, I know going out of a prep or a leaning, that my body needs to regulate back to a healthy, normal body fat. So for me, it's all about just changing my perspective, not weighing, not looking in the mirror, not comparing myself to other people, and really just focusing on me and my heart. So if I ever start having struggles with body image, I either reach out to friends, to family, and then reach out to God. So those are things that I do. In regards to what I suggest for my clients, we stay away from those daily scale weigh-ins. We stay away from looking in the mirror, and we make sure that we stay on track into a reverse process. Making sure not to have food too low, because if you keep food too low and you don't gain a good amount of body fat post-show, then you're just setting yourself up for failure, and your body just wants more and more and more food, and you binge. So we prevent that by staying on track in regards to getting food up as much as we can in a slow process. That way we make them healthy and happy.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's just one of those things too, where it's just, you need to learn to accept, people need to accept their bodies too a little bit more. I mean, with all this posts on Instagram with the fit community, people really just need to just accept that, no, you got to be your own individual. You're not going to look like Lacey. You're not going to look like Paige Hathaway. You're not going to look like those. You're going to look like you, and you can just do the best for you. So I think that's just one of the big things too that needs to be stressed.
Just want to go on that is people don't realize that body image and self-love are things that you have to work on every single day. And this is why I always say, before you're going to do a prep, you have to love yourself now. If you are going to go into a show prep thinking that show is going to teach you how to love yourself, you're dead wrong. You have to go into a show owning your body, loving your body, knowing the blessing that it is, and then doing the show for you and you only.
So you live in the southern part of the country. Do you feel that extra added pressure? Because for me, I'm up in Minnesota, so like we say here, you only have basically 6 months that you have to look good, because the other 6 months you're all bundled up and you can just hide away. But being in a place where it's warm a lot, do you feel that extra added pressure to kind of look good year round?
And thank God I don't, because I don't let people pressure me into looking a certain way anymore. But I can definitely see people being that way, especially if people are in Florida and they wear bathing suits all the time. I can definitely see that happening. For me, I honestly don't care. If I want to wear my pajamas going to the grocery store, I will do that.
And if you look at her Instagram page, she sometimes does do that. So everyone out there, she is not lying when she says that. But where do you think that came from? Was it just a certain point in your life where you just said, hey, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to do me, and if anyone else has a problem with that, it doesn't matter? Yeah,
it definitely did, because when I was on the University of Central Florida team and I started getting into, wanting to do a bodybuilding competition, none of those girls, none of those guys, those teammates supported me except one. And it really took, saying, you know what, it doesn't matter what you think, because I'm going to own it. And if you don't care, then that's okay. And that actually was fantastic, because it taught me to own who I am and to embrace who I am. So I'm weird. I'm a freak. And you know what? That's okay. Like, I'm fine with that.
One of the things that I also like to mention too is, if you do go on her Instagram page, she does love cats as well. So you will see a lot of cat pics.
Cats. I'm a crazy cat lady.
I just so everyone out there knows, I was a fan with Maple. Was when I basically was around when I started following you.
Oh, Maple was such a sweetheart.
Yeah, I know. I was sad too when I saw that post. It was bad. But what? If you could pick one, what's your main breed of cat that you like the most? Or do you like all breeds?
Calicos. I've had 3 calicos my whole life, and calicos are the sweetest, funniest, craziest cats. What about you? What breed?
I would definitely have to say, okay, you might not like this, but I've never had a cat before. I'm a huge dog person. We have a Cavachon, which is a Bichon Frise mixed with a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. But my dad absolutely loves cats. He grew up on a farm, and there were tons of cats around. But I would say if I had a cat, I would like a Siamese cat. I just think they look really cool.
Oh, they're very loud, but they're extremely smart and intellectual. So you would love to have a Siamese. They're great.
So when it comes to, having this fit lifestyle, has it helped you kind of when it comes to knowing foods for your cats, though, to kind of like get the fit brands of cat food? Has your nutrition background really helped in that?
Knowing just a tiny bit. So knowing that cats need to not have grains in their diet and they're carnivores has helped. What IBD is, irritable bowel disease, and knowing my cat has it and needs to not have higher fat containing foods was helpful. But other than that, not too much. So that was extremely helpful to know about what IBD was when my cat was diagnosed.
Oh yeah, Yeah, that's definitely something that you really need to know about, because otherwise there's going to be problems probably in the litter box.
Speaking of cats, she just came into the room and said hi.
Oh, hi. So, this is now we're going to go to the part of the podcast that's the audience favorite, where I just ask basically for bands, I ask them like 5 questions, and then for nutritionists I've been it's called kind of like the 5 question segment. So for my first question, I'm going to ask you, what is your go-to workout song?
Ooh, crap. That's really hard. Okay, let me because I just added one today. Where'd it go? Your library. Songs. Okay, well, I know Overcomer always gets me going, but in regards to a fun song, Freedom from the Bellas, Pitch Perfect 3 has been my jam the past week, which is really pathetic, but just listen to the Pitch Perfect 1 through 3 playlist. It will get you going. I
am old school. I usually like a Metallica song, or I like, believe it or not, I have the entire Rocky IV soundtrack, and that is basically my go-to workout soundtrack. Wow. Yeah, I listen to that all the time, but yeah, I am a classic. I just need something that really gets me into it, because I am usually sloggy when I go to work out, so then I kind of need to, I usually like to work out a little bit later in the night or early in the morning, sometimes it depends. So that's what I basically am. And then for our second question, out of all the celebrities, if you could train a celebrity, who would you train and why?
Oh, Ellen DeGeneres, because she is an incredible human and she is hilarious, and we would have a blast together and be the best friends ever. So definitely Ellen.
The one problem I could see with that, though, is that she'd be so funny that you probably wouldn't get that much working out done.
Oh yeah. But at least you get an ab workout laughing, right?
Absolutely.
You wouldn't have to do the abs.
Absolutely. That's the best part to it. Oh, and just a little side topic. I've had people on here that I've asked about their ab workouts, and some of them said that they don't even train abs as much. It's just more of the nutrition. What's your opinion on that, and how does that go in your prep?
So obviously we have abdominal muscles, without having to train them. However, if you want your abs to have a certain look, and you really want to make them have that blocky, defined look, you have to train abs. Just like any other muscle, training them grow helps them shape. Not training them, it'll whittle them away. So you'll have more of a flat look, but you won't have those defined 6-pack or even 8-pack if that's what you want. So I'm a firm believer in training your abs for that reason, as well as making sure that you have a healthy moving body, because if you don't train your abs and you have a really tight lower back, really tight hamstrings, it's just going to create muscular imbalances, and we do not want that. We want to keep being going forever.
Yeah. So I've always wondered what really is the difference between a 6-pack and an 8-pack, work-wise? Do you just have to do more compound moves, or is it because a lot of people can generally, or some people can generally just grow an 8-pack more than they have a 6-pack, but some people just can't really seem to get those 2 final abdominals are visible. What's the difference really?
Huge difference is your genetics. That's huge. But really working on those top 2 abs and really hitting them. I find that doing lat pullovers with a dumbbell, as well as hanging leg raises, are the top 2 for hitting those top 2 abs.
Absolutely. And by the way, everyone on there, 3 years ago, I messaged Lacey on Instagram asking for exercises for lower and upper abs, and she did respond. So we have a tiny bit of history. So I had to bring this question up again just to make sure. But for our third question overall in the 5 questions, if there was a celebrity in the fitness community that you could train with, who would it be and what would you train?
Ooh, dang. That's a good one. Probably Jen Jewell. She's a WBFF fitness pro, because she was one of the first people I ever followed. She's such a genuine, sweet, so helpful. She's always stayed true to who she is. And you know what? We would do a full body. That way we got the whole bang for your buck. We would go after it.
Absolutely.
She would probably kill me, but you know what? That is okay.
So for our fourth question, if there was one thing that you could change about the sport of bodybuilding, what would it be?
I would drug test it.
Oh, yeah?
As much as I know that drugs are something that can take on their own, it's their decision. I've seen way too many things happen, and I've seen people I haven't seen people die, but I've been there when people were taken to the hospital and then they didn't come back. So I just wish they would drug test.
So what's the current policy on that? I thought for some they drug test, or is it just for the natural competitions that they have drug tests? How does that work?
For the natural shows, they only drug test if you win.
Oh.
And the problem is some drugs don't show up on drug tests, so that's a whole nother problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise they don't drug test.
Yeah, I was watching that whole program on Netflix, if you've seen it, the Icarus thing about the Russian doping scandal.
No, I haven't. Is that the one about the gymnasts?
Well, it's about a guy was doing a video. He was going to do a thing where he was going to be an amateur cyclist, where he wanted to see really how much steroids played in making him a better cyclist. So he trained for like 12 months as a regular cyclist and got to the peak of his physical condition, and then recorded his results, and then did steroids, and then tried to train for the race again just to see how much better it would be. And it's all amateur, so it's not like he was like cheating in like a national thing to like get rewarded. But he came into contact with one of the Russian guys behind the whole entire Russian doping scandal, and the guy revealed everything, like how they got the drugs in the people and how they were able to avoid drug testing. It is, if you have any spare time, I highly recommend it. It's about an hour and a half long. It's called Icarus. I think it's still on Netflix. It is very, very informative, and basically I'll just kind of go over one of the things that they kind of used in order to not get caught with the drugs. One of the things that they did do is that, obviously it's Russia, so they had vodka, plenty of vodka around, but they would mix some of the steroids with vodka, and then they found that if you drank it with the vodka, then when you peed, all of the bad stuff would come out of your pee, but all the good stuff would stay in, and that would be avoided of the drug test. It's just really, really a fascinating thing to see, and I highly recommend it.
Interesting and scary.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then, like, the guy's life was being threatened, so he had to move to America. And then it's just, it's very, it was very, very eye-opening, because that's the reason this guy speaking was one of the big reasons why the whole Russian team got banned from the Olympics that in, like, 2014.
Wow.
So, I highly recommend it. So, for our fifth question, what would be the best piece of advice that you could give someone when they're starting off in their fitness journey?
Do your research, learn proper form, and have a coach for your nutrition. Those are my biggest tips.
Absolutely. One of the questions that I do like to ask people kind of towards the end here is, if you could only tell one last story and no longer be a storyteller, what would it be?
I would tell the story of climbing from a very deep and dark, depressed state in high school to thinking that, it was the end, to having a dream where I spoke with God and I was able to, the next day, push past and be a new person, walk in his path. I just hope that people know that they all have an amazing life ahead of them and that they just need to follow that.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things that we like to stress on here as well, is that everyone has their own path. Everyone is special in their own individual way. And just it's always one of the really heartbreaking things is people that don't realize their true potential, or they don't really go for it, or they sadly just choose to kind of zone out or just kind of give up. But it's just, you're going to have tough times. It's just about persevering. And especially you of all people should know that, being in the fit community and prepping, I mean, you're going to have a lot of tough times, and it's just persevering. How has that helped you mentally, you think, as well? Kind of having that fit lifestyle where, you have a set schedule a lot of the times, and you're very on the point with your prep. How has that helped you in other areas of your life as well, when it comes to just the personality development that you think is happened because of that?
Fitness, hands down, has taught me time management. So that was what I'm most thankful for, is it really has taught me to have to manage my time and make sure that I fuel my body, not only for fitness, but to be able to be the best person I can be and feel my best throughout the day. So that's the reason I'm very thankful for it.
Absolutely. And one of the last questions we have here is, what is one thing that you know that is true that almost nobody agrees with you on?
Oh, God, that's a really hard question. Why do you throw that one at me?
They don't pay me the big bucks for any other reason.
People think that dogs are better than cats, and cats are 100% better than dogs.
Debatable.
I'll go with that one.
Yeah, I do. The one thing I do appreciate more about cats than dogs, though, is that I like the videos of like people going and like scaring their cats and then just having the cats just like perk up or like jump like 18 feet in the air. Those are some of the most entertaining videos of all time.
Oh yeah, they really are. And have you seen the cucumber
Yes.
challenge?
Yes.
Yes. See, that did not work on Maple. I tried it like 5 times and it never worked. It was so sad. I was like, come on, you're not a cat.
And being that you have so many Instagram followers and a lot of people follow you, what would you say is the most surprising, or what is a surprising thing that people usually comment to you when they meet you in person as opposed to when they followed you for a long time? Is there like something where they say like, oh my God, like I didn't understand like you were like this in real life? Is there a quality that you think you have that people don't realize until they meet you?
People think I'm quiet. Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you're so bubbly. Or you're so tiny, because I am a petite person.
Yeah.
And I love when people just think I'm quiet and then they think I'm tall, because I'm not tall and I'm not quiet. I can be shy if I want to be, but I am very sarcastic and I tell it like it is. People have told me that they think I'm like a mouse and I don't speak up for myself, but you better bet I speak up for myself a lot. And I say what I want, which can catch me and cause me problems a lot.
Hey, well, I mean, obviously, I think that with also the fitness lifestyle too, I mean, you have a lot of muscles to back up the talk too as well. So,
I try. I'm trying. I'm trying to catch up my muscles to my level of sass.
So where do you see the sport of bodybuilding maybe in like the next 5 years? Do you think it will change much, or do you think it'll stay mainly the same?
I think it'll stay the same the next 5 years. I feel like it's going to go a lot more mainstream than it is right now.
Yeah,
it's been continuously expanding. So I can definitely see it going more mainstream, potentially being on television the next 5 years. I definitely see that happening.
Yeah, they used to have it on ESPN. They'd have some of the old bodybuilding shows I remember watching when I was younger as a kid, but they just don't do that anymore. But I think especially with like things like CrossFit really taking off and they have it on ESPN, stuff like that will, I think obviously the fitness, and I think too also it would kind of be more of like a public health thing too, where as the nation might become more and more obese, they might really need to start promoting stuff like that, even though bodybuilding isn't extreme when it comes to maybe weight loss or fitness journeys. But just to promote the idea of a more healthier version, I really think is something that they could really do. And lastly, if you could have talked to yourself 5 years ago, not knowing that this was really going to take off and what you were going to become 5 years from now, what would be the best piece of advice that you would have given yourself?
That was before I embraced who I was. And I would have told myself, don't care what anybody thinks about you. Don't care about what social media says you need to look like. Don't let people who don't believe in you bring you down. Because you have to believe in you. And if you believe in you and you love yourself, then that's all that matters. Nobody else can take that from you. Nobody else can tear you down if you are your own best friend. And I wish I would have done that for myself.
Yep, me too, absolutely. So you aren't a registered dietitian yet, but you're going to be soon. What's the future looking like for you maybe in the next year or so when it comes to your account, when it comes to fitness overall? I mean, I know you're getting ready for a show. What's the future looking like for you?
So I'm very much so hoping to open up my own private practice in a full year of time. But really this fall is for me. I'm going to just allow myself to relax, enjoy a prep. Then as of January, I'll get a good, stable job, hopefully in renal care, so kidney care, nutrition. And I'll keep providing content in regards to nutrition, fitness. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. But for now, I'm really trying to focus on me. And I'm very excited about that. But when my private practice comes about, you better bet that there's going to be a lot of content coming out.
Well, and I, for one, and I know most of my audience, we cannot wait to see it. And where can people find you other than your Instagram page?
Okay, so you can find me on my website, upliftfit.org. My Instagram page is Faith and Fit, and then my sciencey Instagram page is Uplift Fit Nutrition. I also am on Twitter, and I tend to tweet things and need to delete them instantly. So
I love your tweets, by the way.
Thank you. My Twitter's at Lacey A. Dunn. And then if you have questions, if you want to reach out to me, my email is fitandfaith@gmail.com. Again, it's fitandfaith@gmail.com, not like my Instagram at Faith and Fit.
And I just got to stress enough that everyone, if you do need any help in anything, go and talk to Lacey. She is very, very willing to communicate with you. I mean, for someone who has that many followers and for someone who's that famous in the fit community, for her to even come on this podcast, I mean, we are forever grateful to have her on. And just she responds to almost anything, and just reach out to her. It may seem like when you see like her Instagram page, when you're like, oh my God, she has over 300,000 followers. Like, I don't think she'll see my message. She will. And she's a kind enough person, at least in my opinion, that she will reach out for you. So I highly recommend, if you aren't following her already, I mean, you know, like I said before, you're not doing it right. So go ahead and give her a follow. She has plenty of great content. And I mean, even if you're the most ripped person on the planet, you can still obviously learn some stuff from her. She knows her stuff. That's one of the things that I've come from following her over the years. But Lacey, once again, is an absolute pleasure to have had you on the podcast. We greatly appreciate it. And if you have anything that you need us to plug or promote in the near future, if you're releasing anything, just give me a message. I'd be more than happy to mention it. It was an absolute thrill having you on. And do you have anything that you'd like to say before we wrap things up here?
No, I just want to thank you so much for having an honor, and really I strive to help every single person reach their goals, every single person be able to know what will help them be the most healthy that they could be. So please, if you have a question, always feel free to reach out to me. And thank you again for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. So, again, Lacey Dunn, we're going to leave all of her links down below so you can go and check out all the stuff. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great night, everyone.